Hello, I'm Rich Lieberman. It's Saturday. We're in the middle of the month. Thank you for coming to the YouTube show that I do virtually every day here. And I oftentimes, when I have something set to talk about, I get periodically somewhat, how can I put this? I end up latching on to something, whether I'm reading something or watching something, and it harkens me back to what a lot of my critics say. Oh, you talk about the old days too much, the good old days and all that. Well, and as I've often stated, first off, to hell with you. If you don't like the fact that I talk about the good old days, I'm not forcing you to come here. I really am not. And I'm not saying that arrogantly or with some sort of you know, passive aggressiveness. Is that what it is? I still can't figure that term out. But um, I grew up really, really appreciating and loving. It's maybe a strong word. Admiring, also maybe too strong of a word. But the time when we really had good outlets here, and even though the Chronicle was universally scorned and belittled and made fun of, but that famous movie, All the President's Men, where Jason Robards is playing Ben Bradley, and some guy comes in, some cuckoo guys, trying to sell him some kind of a feature for the paper. He says, get rid of it. Go to, call the Chronicle, send it to the San Francisco Chronicle. So, I mean, the Chronicle was always made fun of, always. But at least they had elements of credibility, right? They had columnists and Herb Cain and Art Hoppe and McCabe and just really good people that saved the paper. And those were different times and all that. But it was still, at one point, do you know the Chronicle was the tenth largest newspaper in terms of circulation? It once had about 535,000 paid subscribers. This was as not that long ago, but it was like in the early 80s. And yeah, it was a goofy, they called it the comical and other names and all that. But it was a reasonable, again, I know all about the business has changed and the world has changed and newspapers. That's just one thing I want to talk about. But still, it was still somewhat readable. It was still, and that was obviously pre-internet. But even now, when you look at the paper online or its sister or whatever you want to call it, aggregate SF Gate, it's a joke. You look, every day there's a story about a restaurant. It's not part of the food section. It's just every day is the restaurant or the purple burrito or the pink house in the Mission. That, I mean, they're just so absolutely kissing ass to these mum skills that read online, I guess, whatever, we're a product of our environment. I get all of that. But in any event, that's just one aspect of what used to be all that stuff, the Chronicle and all that stuff. Um, but I was thinking aloud to like radio and culture and television and just everything. And it seems to me nothing is sacred anymore. I mentioned the Chronicle, our television news stations, for the most part, dreck. I hate to be a downer, folks. I really do. Oh, every now and then, if I'm watching YouTube, you see something that's decent, but that gets completely erased within moments. And nobody has any modicum of creativity. It's all gimmickry. It's BS. the little radio that we have left in the Bay Area, it's all predicated on BS. It's everybody trying to do something within the means of what they claim they're financially handicapped and all that. So they have an excuse basically for the dreck that they put out. You know, uh, I get criticized by people who say all I do is talk about KNBR, KCBS, and I pretty much vilify them daily. Well, I would love to be complimentary, and I have been. I have been. If I watch something that's good, I will highlight somebody. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, or not even that long ago, with KPIX and their coverage of the minor league baseball team in Oakland, the Ballers. They had this little field, this stadium that seats about 5,000 people, and how beautiful it was. How they made it part of their newscast, and they had really good reporting, and it was live, and it was a field of dreams in the middle of an urban oasis and all that. And I gave them credit, particularly Juliet Goodrich. Thought did a yeoman's job. And people are saying, what were you doing? What were you doing? They were so surprised. Well, when I see good work, I'll compliment. And frankly, compliment radio stations or TV stations that I've been critical in the past, maybe very harsh, because I'm consistent at that. I don't have any biases either way. Oh, there's a few outlets, you know, that tend to screw me over, metaphorically speaking. I might have a more difficult time with them, but look, you know, I miss the old days. I really do. I miss the old days. I grew up in the 70s and I listened to the old KGO. And some of you newer, younger people who have watched me lately and continue to watch and subscribe to my media channel. If you were around in the 70s and listened to KGO, you would have understood my passion. As I've often said, I love radio. I love old-fashioned radio. I still have a transistor radio. And those days where you'd go to the park and you'd have the radio on in the background. Maybe your summertime as we're approaching summer. You'd listen to the radio. What would you listen to? You might listen to a baseball game. You might, for those of you every now and then want to have a cigar and you sit outside, maybe you're going to have a barbecue or something. You put the radio on because it was so momentary. It was so real. And the very essence of radio is if you're listening to somebody in particular, whether it's a man or a woman, newscaster, DJ, we don't really have DJs today, but the whole element of radio, which made it and makes it unique, is the fact that it's so unpredictable and you don't know what you're listening to, but it's interesting. Those of you who grew up in the East Coast, maybe you listened to Cousin Brucey, the DJ, a real disc jockey out of New York, and who was sort of like an old-fashioned radio broadcaster, performer, whether it was music or talk or all that. I lament the fact that we don't have any of that in the Bay Area and very little of it elsewhere on an outlet, on a medium like radio, which, and again, I know about people with their phones and they don't listen to terrestrial radio anymore and all that. If, God forbid, you put something decent to listen to. Now it's called podcasts. Podcasts. I hate that term. But it's the dictionary definition of what is regarded today as talk, kind of a free-form talk that you have to kind of look hard to find. Any event, Bay Area, the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area had such heritage media outlets. Even the Chronicle, as lampooned as it was, I mentioned the columnists and the culture And sitting down on a Saturday like today and having breakfast and reading the paper. He's still alive. Very, very vibrant guy. I believe he still writes every now and then. Art Spander was a sports writer for the Chronicle and the Examiner. I say was. He is not working there anymore. He's close to 90. But Art loved doing this. And he told it to me. And I said to Art, that's what I like doing. That's what I love doing. A few years back, Art loved to go have breakfast at a little cafe or a little diner, and he would bring the physical newspaper with him, like a Chronicle or the Times and the New York Times and the USA Today. Eat breakfast, drink the coffee, and read the paper. And please don't tell me about this stupid thing. This, which has destroyed pretty much our entire lives, by the way, folks. I'm not lamenting technology. I am a product of technology. I use technology. I'm saying there are certain things that are far more pleasurable, like reading a physical printed newspaper, eating breakfast, and not having this stupid thing in your face. I use it. I have an iPhone. I'm on the computer right now and you're watching me. So I'm not bemoaning what we are these days, but I miss the old fashioned virtues and pleasures of reading the paper, having a nice pot of coffee, having breakfast and reading and enjoying and all that. Times have changed. I get all that. And it wasn't only that. I like reading movie reviews. I used to go, like many of you, to the movies when I enjoyed it, when there was no people on their phones, by the way, or talking loud, as a lot of people talk loud because they think that everybody is interested in their own conversation. Okay. That reminds me of a segment that KGO, I believe it was Jim Eason, used to talk about these annoying people who talked real loud. There was an episode on Seinfeld. There was a character, guy by the close talker. Remember that guy? He would get in Elaine's face or Jerry, and he would talk very, very close and loud and close enough to where the spitting stuff, that comes in there, those little particles, you could see his particles, his personal particles. That'd be a great movie title. Personal Particles. Okay. So, yeah, that was on KGO. That was so great about KGO. And I broadcast this about a week and a half ago about WABC. And thank you, all those of you who responded and basically agreed and applauded my article, my visual article about WABC, who, it's a really great station if you like old-fashioned radio. And actual personalities and opinion and that kind of a thing, which San Francisco used to be in the forefront. KGO Radio, the Chronicle. I can highlight and compliment the Chronicle of all things, because back then with Herb Cain and Art Hoppe and Charles McCabe and John Wasserman and Jerry Nachman. My God, what a fantastic paper. They would have survived this environment today. I don't know why. Just like people ask me about KGO, would KGO have been able to survive? And they've only been gone for a couple of years now. Yeah, if you put interesting content out there, and I don't give a darn whether it's radio or television or internet, newspaper, this, that, the other. There's this ongoing kinship now with vinyl. Remember the old records that we used to play? CDs. Remember those things? You know why they're coming back? They're not really coming back, but I guess By definition, they are, because there's quality on there, whether it's music, talk. This guy, Joe Rogan, he's the darling of podcasts. Most of you people never even heard of him. Guy makes $100 million a year, and he's got millions and millions of followers because he's interesting. Now, I've listened to the guy. I don't really care for it. He's kind of out there, not just politically, but he's kind of a weird dude. He's like this guy running for president, this RFK, which I still don't get that whole thing. I don't understand that. The guy's kind of whack job in my book. Married to Cheryl Hines, of all people, because I guess maybe she really wanted to be with a Kennedy. Whatever. All right, so I'm kind of going off subject here, which I always do, and I don't mind it because you know what? Just like myself, I know a lot of you people like watching, and a lot of you people don't like watching, and some of you are in the middle. Although I can't fathom those of you that are in the middle. You either got one of two things. You got to be one of. You either really like me or you really hate me, which for investors out there who want to invest in my feasibility to becoming or not, that's a good thing, right? If it's just blasé and nobody gives a damn, okay. Back to the original reasoning for this broadcast, and that is San Francisco and the Bay Area, this so-called cosmopolitan oasis, this land of free speech, and culture, and coffee houses, and media, and all the good restaurants in San Francisco and Berkeley and Piedmont Avenue in Oakland, and we have the burbs like Walnut Creek, Silicon Valley, where all the billionaires, most billionaires on the planet per capita. And yet, look what we're reduced to now, folks. Look at I sound like Bill Maher right now. Look at what we're reduced to. Look at what we are reduced to. We've got nothing. We've got humdrum, blase kind of crap. What culture do we have? Look at the symphony in San Francisco. They're failing up the yin yang. They had to hire a new president and a board person that was responsible for its, for its budget and all that. They're nearing bankruptcy. The San Francisco Symphony, the San Francisco Opera. I think they're in trouble, but at least they're on board. We don't got any radio, as I continually say, whether it's FM, AM, that M, HD1. We got no news station on radio. We got literally no talk station on radio here, terrestrial radio. We got no newspaper. We got no suburban papers. Our restaurants, the real good ones, a few of them are still around, but a lot of them are closing shop. And again, I know that's part of the pandemic, something which, so apt, unfortunately, indicative of the times that we live in. We're kind of on this peril, this real peril, where look what we get our pleasure from: devices. I went, as I always do, went and had some coffee at my favorite little cafe in the Rockridge area of Oakland. And all I saw was this. Even parents with their little kids, and not many little kids to go to this place because it's kind of it's a coffee place. But these people can't get away from this damn thing. I carry it around in case somebody wants to call me. If somebody does call me and not text me, I have to tell them, like, I can't talk. I got to get in the car. God forbid you can't talk today at all. You have to text. But all these people on their phones, I just miss the old-fashioned virtues. I miss, as I frequently do, I miss getting in the car, coming into the house after breakfast and putting on a KGO on a Saturday morning and discussing the news. The news talk. Didn't have to be actual news. It could be entertainment, could be sports talk. We don't have sports talk radio in San Francisco. We got a bunch of posers, wannabes. They don't talk extemporaneously. They can't talk extemporaneously. Everything is a bit, everything is a contrived, artificial means of trying to be funny when they're certainly not, of trying to be creative when they couldn't be creative enough if their life depended on it. Everything is forced. It's all forced. They don't know how to interact. Everything is a bit. They can't speak in regular human terms and discuss. And by the way, you can have a format and you can adapt to a clock by being natural. You just have to be you and you have to practice a little bit. But yelling and screaming and thinking that you're something when you're clearly not, and bragging to your purveyors about the fact that you brought the station up in a month, big deal, as if you're some sort of a Marconi. I'm referring to somebody that used to be a program director at KNBR, which used to be a pretty good station with Radnich, Pete Franklin, Ralph Barbieri. Yeah, even Ralph Barbieri. Boy, do we miss him now, huh? We used to have all that. We used to have great little we still do coffee places where you can go and sit down and do whatever you did and enjoy your coffee and not be bothered, and like we are today with these damn people with their phones and their laptops. Drives me crazy. I went out on a date about a month ago. I didn't tell this story, but it's brief. I'll shorten it up. Was meeting this nice lady who invited me. Nothing came of it, by the way. That's the story of my life. In any event, so I'm meeting her at this. She's buying. She's a very well known in her. How can I put her in her profession? She works in advertising, and she reads me, and I don't want to get off on that, but so we were talking, a couple times. I met her at this coffee place. So she says, hey, let's go have dinner. She's divorced, and it's a long story, but I wasn't trying and she wasn't, and she's considerably you know younger, so, but she wanted to meet. I insist, platonic, of course, that's fine. And she says, let's go to this place. I had to, I live across the bay, so I had to go over to the city, which is fine. Nice place. She's buying. So I get there early. It's placed near the Embarcadero. I don't want to name the place because I don't know. It's a nice place, and I don't want to vilify them. It wasn't their fault. And, what are you talking about, Rich? Okay. So I get to the bar. I'm just having a soda water, right? There's no place to sit. And I just wanted to have a soda water. I'm there about 20 minutes early. This guy walks in and he puts his laptop up on the bar. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We're not at Starbucks. We're not at speaking of little coffee places. You're kidding. And I look at the bartender. He looks at me like as if I just kind of flew in from Venus. And I said out loud on purpose, I'm the only one sitting there. And then this guy shows up and he's going to put out his computer and start. I said, you're not going to allow that. And he looks at me like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I just start shaking my head. And I said, look, with all due respect, you can't do this. This is not. We're in a really nice place down there, the Embarcadero. And in any event, I took my little soda. I told the bartender, and the bartender told the guy, and the guy, put his by then I'm, meeting my friend. But what kind of BS is that? You're gonna put your laptop on a bar at 6 o'clock at the evening. It's a nice little spot. People are there. There's some dates going on. You got people, on the order there. And you do this. I'm surprised you. Why don't you put your headphones on? And anyway, my point in all saying this is the culture that we are today is so abominable. This was kind of an extreme, analogy here, but you get what I'm saying. In any event, we had such great things like Acagio, like the Chronicle, KCBS, and now we're reduced to this world in which we live. And it's really a shame. Um, so, apropos of you like my blue and black. Okay. Um, Two personal housekeeping notes. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you can contribute, please do contribute by sending in a contribution of any amount is very, very helpful. It goes to me. It enables me to give you wonderful spiels and monologues like this. It is all to me, by the way. I don't have a staff. My staff is right here. Okay. And please, no jokes about that. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel and do both, God forbid. And if you have any recommendations, if you have some, what's the word, feedback, always appreciated. Keep it nice. And if you want to be, you know, constructive criticism, Bill, by all means. I like that. I want that. But don't put in little rip jobs and all that. You want to be personal? Can't work with that. I really love comments. I'm sometimes late to actually publishing the comments because I've got other things that I'm trying to work on to get this site, a lot better and all that kind of stuff in terms of the technique and production and all that. So I'm doing my best in that regard. Bear with me. Got some issues this week that I have to have to, as I repeat myself, to continue this, hopefully, with your support. So please contribute. I will personally, by the way, thank you. If, any of you contribute $10 or more, I'm in the process of trying to get this guy to make some coffee cups for me, and I'll throw you a coffee cup when they're available. What else? It's Saturday. It's a beautiful day outside. Please be a subscriber, and thank you for watching. Oh, and again, please contribute because without your donations, there is no Rich Lieberman. Thank you. On the, YouTube. Thanks, YouTube.